Amonkhet is a very difficult set for Sealed. What's tricky about it is that there's a lack of mana fixing, themes that span all 5 colors, and new and unusual mechanic interactions. The biggest challenge will be the deck building process, as it will be difficult to know where to start. In this video, we'll discuss a deck building strategy that I believe will be highly useful for Amonkhet Sealed. But first, if you haven't already seen my video about draft archetypes in Amonkhet, here's a brief rundown. There are 6 main themes in Amonkhet. Zombies, which uses strength and numbers to win. Embalm, which brings your creatures back from the graveyard late game. Cycle Discard, which draws you cards until you reach late game. -1 counters, which weakens your opponent's creatures while slowly strengthening your own. Exert Beatdown, which is the most aggressive theme in the set. And lastly, Ramp, which gives you extra mana early on. But enough of that, let's get to the deck building strategy that I was talking about. Now, there is no right or wrong way to build a sealed deck. Every player has their own preferred method of going about it. And the strategy that I'll present you may like or you may not like. But if you find yourself stuck on the deck building process, this strategy could help you out. So here it is. You want to start by creating 3 rows. Rows A, B, and C. The top row, row A, will be for the best cards, cards that work well regardless of the game state. For example, Glorybringer, Angel, Sanctions, and Channeler Nishit are all cards that work well in all situations, whether you are winning or losing, or whether you have many creatures or no creatures at all. These are the cards that belong in row A. You'll also want to sort these rows by colors so you can easily see which colors of yours are the strongest. Okay, on row B. Cards in row B aren't necessarily worse than cards in row A, they are just cards that require specific conditions to work. For example, Heckmaw Sentinels is a great card if you have a lot of cycling, but otherwise a 2/3 for 3 isn't so great. Since it's only good in certain situations, it belongs in row B. The same is true for cards like Time to Reflect, Lord of the Accursed, and Defiant Greatmaw, which all have potential but only under the right conditions. The last row, row C, is for everything else. They're not as attractive and flashy as the cards in the first 2 rows, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be in your deck. It's just that they probably shouldn't be the main thing that you build your deck around. Cards that belong here may include Winged Shepherd, Slitherblade, and Pursue Glory, which may or may not make the cut even if you end up in their colors. We can also make this decision easier if we instead split each row into 2 piles, with the top pile being better than the cards in the bottom pile. And if you're low on table space at the sealed event, you can combine the 2 piles into one and instead turn the lesser cards sideways. Once all the cards are sorted into these 3 rows, it should be a lot easier to decide on the colors for your deck, with row A having the biggest impact on your decision, followed by rows B and C respectively. The whole point of all of this is to narrow down your decision to figure out which colors of yours will have the most potential. And once you start to narrow it down, you'll then want to look at your cards in row B to check for cards that fit a common theme. If everything checks out here, then you probably know at this point which colors of yours will have the most potential at constructing a deck. But now the question is, how many colors should you include in your deck? To answer this, I would first start by looking at your green cards. Green is the only color able to produce mana in this set, and if you find that you have a good number of green cards that produce any color of mana, then you should be able to run 3 colors comfortably. But if you don't have these cards, or your green cards just aren't good enough to be part of your deck, then the next place I would look is your cycling cards. Cycling can be found across all 5 colors, but is the heaviest in blue, black, and red. If you find that you have a lot of solid cycling cards, then running 3 colors in your deck should be fine since you'll be drawing a lot of cards and thus more likely to find the lands you need. But if your piles are lacking in both green and cycling, then I'd probably just stick to 2 colors and maybe splash a 3rd if you're brave enough. Once you've figured out your colors, then you want to check for the typical things you look for in a deck: a smooth mana curve, good number of creatures, and removal. I would start by organizing the cards by converted mana cost to make sure that you don't have too many cards of the same cost. A deck will typically have more converted mana cost 3 cards than both converted mana cost 2 and 4 cards, but it varies from deck to deck. Just make sure the curve looks relatively smooth, and if not, consider swapping some of the cards to smooth things out. Next, I would count the number of creature cards and removal cards that you have. There's no exact number of creatures that you should have, but I prefer at least 14 creatures, maybe less if there's enough removals to justify the cut. And if everything checks out here as well, then your deck is good to go. Now, this strategy isn't perfect, especially when it comes to deciding which cards go in each row. A card that one player thinks is great may seem weak in the eyes of someone else. And on top of that, your opinions of cards will undoubtedly change as you become more familiar with the set. As imperfect as the strategy is, it is one way of easing the challenges of sealed deck construction. And while there's no right or wrong way to construct a deck, hopefully you found the ideas presented here interesting and helpful. If you'd like to see more Amonkhet videos, you can let me know by subscribing below. And as always, let me know what you guys think in the comments, as I do read every comment. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day.